That was then. The race to avoid a government shutdown that could be decided on defense spending now. A nearly $700 billion defense measure that is called for letting us catch up with what Republicans argue has been underspending there. A Republican congressman who disagrees. He's Jimmy Duncan, says that true fiscal conservatives simply cannot justify upping the defense budget to that degree. It would be over $100 billion from where it is now, Congressman, and you're saying that's a little extreme, right?
Well, it was $80 billion over the budget caps, Neil, and it was billions more even than President Trump requested. And so I asked the question, it makes me wonder whether there's any fiscal conservatives at the Pentagon. And I'm very pro-defense, but you can go ridiculously overboard on anything, and we've more than doubled defense spending since 2000, and that's more than double the rate of inflation during those years. So I think we need to look for ways to operate more efficiently with a little less money, and I think it's possible to do that.
Now, are you saying a little less money from the budget the way it is now, or from what they're talking about to break these spending caps to allow for a little bit more? One of the things, for example, that John McCain has looked to do.
Well, I said in the speech I gave on the floor, you know, that our national debt has now gone over $20 trillion, and we announced a few weeks ago that the deficit for this past fiscal year was $666 billion, and some people think it's going to be even higher this next year. And so I think we've got to have some fiscal conservatism in every department, even in the Defense Department. And in fact, there is waste, even in the Defense Department. And I'm a veteran. I started in the Army as an enlisted man and rose to the rank of captain. And I think national defense is probably our most legitimate function of our national government. But I still think that we ought to operate frugally even in that department.
No, I think certainly you carry a special weight given your background, and you're pretty consistent on this issue, having covered you, Congressman, so I commend you for that. But I do wonder, too, I guess your fears are the genie that could be out of the bottle if concessions are made to those who want to increase the defense budget. Obviously, Democrats are arguing that non-defense spending has got to go up as well. Then all of a sudden, all bets are off, aren't they?
Well, that's correct, and that's another concern of mine, because I see that heading down the road too, and I think we're headed towards another omnibus that busts the budget. And what I have pointed out is that the $700 billion defense bill that we passed is not the whole story for defense. We passed the military construction bill is in a separate bill, and that's another $110 billion that we've added in the last 10 years in that area. And then the Defense Department has gotten extra billions in almost all the emergency and supplemental appropriations bills that we've passed in recent years, and I'm sure they'll have extra money in the omnibus that we're headed toward, I think.
Are you for the tax cut?
Yes, I'm for the tax cut, but I'm also for spending cuts. I think we've got to tighten our spending, reduce our spending in every department and agency of the federal government.
So when people look at this and say that tax cuts should be paid for, you're obviously in that camp. You would do spending cuts, but not too many are. Now, we're told the administration, Republicans are open to addressing welfare spending to try to get that under control. You would be for that?
Yes, I would be for that, and I do believe that leaving more money in the private sector, you know, the least economical, least efficient, most wasteful way to spend money is to turn it over to the federal government. And if that wasn't true, Cuba and the former Soviet Union and Venezuela would be heavens on earth. So I'm glad we're trying to leave more money in private hands, and I think that will help the economy. And so I really don't believe that this tax cut will add as much to the deficit as some of these predictions.
Well, you're quite right to point out that at $1.5 trillion, and everyone's sort of sweating over how that is to be paid for, no one pays attention to the $9 trillion in debt that will be added through just conventional spending. They're perfectly fine with that, you know?
Well, that's correct.
All right. Congressman, thank you very, very much.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All right. You're a brave soul. I'll say that.
Thank you.